have to turn it on mute.
Okay.
There we go. Now we're live on YouTube.
All right. All right.
And now I'm going to record. Okay, so we are recording and we are live. All right,
Cool.
so finally we got our tech together. We got our lives together. So
Yeah.
we're
Yes, we
ready
did.
for we're finally ready for this chat. Yeah, so I want to welcome everyone. Welcome to Movement is Live. This is episode 6. I am very, very honored and very happy to have Darnell Gilet. Is it Gilet or Gilet?
Well, it's Gilet or Gillette, but
Okay,
yeah, as long as you don't say Gillet, like many people do, then I'm good.
right. No Gillets.
Yeah.
Okay, so Gillette or Gilet. Okay, we're both,
Exactly.
disclaimer, both Darnell and I are Haitian, so that we have that in common. But yeah, so today we are going to be speaking to Darnell about his amazing transformation and his journey that he went on to get to this point where he is today. And so I'm just gonna, just fire a bunch of questions. But of course, like always, I would, I would like the conversation to be as organic as possible. So, we might go on tangents or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's for everyone to get to know, of course, who you are and to take away something that they can take into their lives, of course, hopefully. Um, and yeah, so that's it. And so I will start with I'll start with you, Darnell. Like, how do you can tell the people how do we know each other?
Yes, yes. So when I was living in Jersey City, my wife Alyssa and I were members of JCF, so Jersey City Fitness, and Coach Mel was one of the amazing coaches. And that was actually my first ever boot camp experience, and it really changed my perspective on the gym in total. So
Yes, yes. Yes, I was a coach at JCF, and it had actually been a female only, it was women only training. It was like the first in Jersey City of total body fitness training. And by the time Alyssa actually was a member before Darnell, and we invited, like, we had like this promotion where people invited their significant others, their friends or whatever. And I think that's when you came on, was when we started, incorporating it and incorporating guys into the program. And so it became co-ed from there. And so that was a lot of fun.
yeah.
And it was definitely a change to have guys in the program. But we always had like amazing, amazing, amazing guys, and Darnell was definitely one of them. And he was definitely one of our strongest guys. It would be like, when Darnell walked into the room, it was like, oh Lord, now we got to get all we got to get all the weights out, because he was just so strong, so fast. And it definitely made us as coaches step it up, for sure. You definitely, we had to raise the bar for people like Darnell.
Oh, thank
So
you.
that is how we know each other. And since then we've just been connected, and I've been able to watch your journey on from whatever you shared. um, yeah, on Facebook. Maybe talk a little bit about that. Like, you were very um, guarded with what you shared, but whenever you shared stuff about what you were going through with your body transformation, it was like everyone was like, oh, asking a whole bunch of questions. Like, what was the decision behind that?
Yeah, so I think so it's interesting. So first off, so for people that don't know, my heaviest was 320 pounds. My lightest, which was probably around September or October of last year, or actually no, November of last year, was 165. And right now I'm probably between like 175 to 185, depending, which I feel comfortable at. And my journey, I think, is a little bit different than some, because a lot of times people will go through like a massive weight loss, and then it's very easy to regain depending on how you lose the weight, which I'm sure we'll talk about through this conversation. But I basically lost like my first 100 pounds over the course of like a year, about 12 years ago or so. And I just stayed there for about 10 years. And then had some health complications, etc. Not even complications, maybe that's too heavy of a word, but I just had some health situations that arose. And then in 2020, I was like, okay, I need to finish this, because even though I had lost 100 pounds, I still didn't feel, I knew I wasn't where I wanted to be. And mentally, I had just accepted it. But then 2020, I was like, no, like, see if you can keep going. And then that's when I dropped another 50 pounds. So in total, it was about like 150, 155 from my heaviest. The reason that I was guarded with what I share, and I think it's, we're kind of joking how it's like kind of the whole guard your goals is a very Haitian mindset in a way, just because like my mother was always, just in general, like people don't necessarily need to know what you're doing, or people don't need to know what you're working on. And I think it's like a sense of like parents trying to like really want to instill that humility in you, where it's like when you share some of the successes that you have or things that you're doing, you don't want to come off as like you're gloating or you're showing off, or you don't really want to, you don't want to facilitate an environment where people are jealous of you, or these are all the things that I think maybe that's what my mother was trying to kind of like instill in me. So I think that's one component of it. And then I think the other component was just when you're 320 pounds and you start the process of trying to lose weight, and not even just 320, maybe you are in shape, maybe you're the perfect BMI, which most people aren't, but maybe you're the perfect BMI, but like you're just not comfortable in the gym. And when you go there, there are always people that are trying to comment, and people are always trying to give you different types of advice, because there's a difference between people that are like trying to comment and you could tell that it's really not trying to help you. It's just them commenting for the sake of commenting. And then there are the people that are really like commenting with the purpose of helping. And I found that a lot more people just were commenting really maliciously. And that kind of made me be a lot more reserved, because I felt that not only were people commenting maliciously, but I felt a lot of people were doubting my ability to do something. And when you start on the process of pursuing any type of goal, one of the first steps is like convincing yourself that you can do it, right? Like that's mentally this mental preparation of like convincing yourself that, yeah, I'm 320 today, but tomorrow I'm going to be 319, right? And like that step to mentally believe that takes a lot of like internal reflection. So then when you have these external forces that are trying to instill this doubt back in you, that you work so hard to take out, it's a lot. So that's one of the reasons why I just started to like really preserve a lot of like my journey. Most people would probably be surprised by the fact that I lost this much weight, because it was like out of nowhere, just Darnell shows up and then he has a six pack, right? But it didn't happen overnight. And that's the reason why, because I found that like, hey, when I'm done, then I could share the journey. So that's the third part, is that I knew I wanted to share how I did it, because it was so hard for me, and I wanted to help other people go through that same journey, not just physically, but like the mental journey as well. But I also wanted to be a master of what I did and have a deep understanding of what I did, because if I'm going to share information with people, I want to make sure that I fully tested it end to end and I have a mastery of it. So those are the three reasons why I was so guarded with my process.
Yeah. Yeah. And not only do we, I mean, Darnell and I have like the whole Haitian culture, Haitian um, background in common. We are both also Taurus sign, and everything you just said, everything you just said is so aligned with uh, what, we're very stubborn, we're very guarded, we're very, we definitely want to be masters before we like, we can share and we can lead, we can be seen as the experts. We really want to get to that place where we feel like we've mastered something. And yeah, so but it is that's one thing I just wanted to mention. I was like, I totally kind of relate to like your mindset. Not that I can relate to your journey, I'm not saying that, but um Yeah, so did you have an ideal outcome in mind when you first started on your journey? So you lost 100 pounds in 1 year back in, well, like, when was that?
That was 2000, from 2008 to 2009. So I started September of 2008, and then it was by the time I graduated college, so December of 2009. So maybe like 15 months or something like that.
Okay, so about 15 months, and then so gradually from there, you lost the extra, the additional 50 pounds, you would say.
Well, actually, I stayed steady for a while. So it was like the
Okay.
lowest, like at that time for the last 10 years, the lowest I got was like 205 for like a day. Right.
Oh, okay.
But I would go to like 225 or 228 at
Yeah.
times.
Okay.
I'll give myself some credit for sticking in that range and never going above 230.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it wasn't until like last year that I said, okay, let me just try to get under 200, because I got close. And when you get close, you're like, oh, you're afraid, because you're like, especially when you don't understand why you're losing weight, because sometimes we work so hard and then we lose weight and then we stop and then we don't know why we stop. So like I was always like so afraid that I was like, this is just gonna stop happening. Like I think it was like somebody was just like pressing a button to make me lose the weight instead of me doing it myself.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so that's kind of one of those things where I just stayed around the same for like 10, 12 years. And
Mhm.
then it wasn't until I made this heavy like push last year just to learn more about my body and learn more about really learn more about my body, because people don't really talk about that process, right? Like people don't really talk about learning your body. So
Okay. So talk about that. Like, what does that look like? What does that look like to you, learning your body? What does that mean to you?
yeah, so when I went on the when I started the process of like losing weight in general, and that's another thing, like it's hard to be concise because they're two completely separate journeys, right? Like when I was 22, 23, like my body still had a certain level of elasticity that it doesn't have now, per se. That now I'm 30, going on 35. But so learning your body for me is like one, in terms of eating. So I think that there comes a point when like your body speaks to you, but we like stop listening to it,
Mm.
and like understanding like, how do I like to eat? What actually fills me up? um what does hunger look like legitimate hunger look like for me, versus what does like wanting to snack or cravings look like for me? Like really learning to listen to your body and all those things. And that took time. Like if you asked me this, if I heard myself talking about this a year ago today, I would not know who the heck I was, right? Because none of this would have made sense to me. And what I mean by that is like when, for example, when I would go to work, I would wake up and I wouldn't eat anything, and then I would like grab an oatmeal with some honey or something like that from Jamba Juice on my way
Mm.
to work, and then I would just eat that real quick. But that wouldn't necessarily fill me up. And then I would get to work, and then I would be like, okay, let me go get some coffees, right? So I would get like a coffee, put sugar in it, blah blah blah, and then I would get to lunch, and then not even between lunch, I would be like, okay, there's some candy on the desk here, so let me grab a couple of pieces, because it's only two little pieces of chocolate. And then we all know those crackles are like crack. so, so it's like I want to get two crackles.
Yeah.
And that those I use those examples because like now when I'm eating, it's like, okay, I know that that oatmeal is not really going to do much for me. So as I'm eating, I'm like, okay, I know I like to eat all day. So what I'm gonna do is like when I'm eating in the morning, like every single time I eat, I'm maximizing that meal to make sure that I'm filling myself up enough so I'm not going to feel that craving to snack. And then it's also understanding like, hey, if I'm craving something sweet, like how can I fulfill that craving for me in a way that's like satiating, and then it's also going to last me, so I'm not eating senseless calories through the day. So that's like one example. Whereas like my wife, for example, she doesn't need to eat all day. She literally can eat starting at 12 o'clock. And then I know her clock when it comes to eating as well, right? So that's one of the examples of like learning your body, and then also just
Sure.
learning like, hey, how do you like to work out? So stuff like that.
Yeah, how you like to work out, how you like to eat. And so just what would you say, like, in this process, like you said last year, you said, I'm gonna this is it. I'm gonna see what I can do. Like, I want to get down maybe to my leanest. So did you have did you have an ideal in your mind, and did that did you did you meet your expectations in your mind?
I definitely I met my expectations, I exceeded my expectations, and I fell short of my expectations and hopes at the same
Mm,
time.
mm.
Um, so initially my goal was like, because when you go into uncharted territory, and that's the case with a lot of people when you're losing a lot of weight, especially when you've been overweight your whole life. So growing up, my nickname was Big D. That was my trademark. That's what I was known by. Um, so when the first thing I said, let me go get down to 199 pounds, right? Let me just do that because I've never, when I was in like fourth grade, I think I was like 178 or something
Oh
in like
wow.
fourth grade.
Okay.
By the time I was in eighth grade, I was like 260. I know that for sure. The fourth grade thing might just be a dream or a distant memory, but I know for sure in sixth grade for football physicals, I was 260, and so on and so forth. So with that said, it when you get to the point when it's like, okay, I want to get to 199, you don't even know what that looks like. Like
Mm.
you can't even imagine that. That's not in the cards for you because you've never been there before in life. So my first goal was
You
just
don't
like,
remember being there. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And when I was there, it was like this is a different person. Didn't even hit puberty yet when I was that weight, right? So it's crazy. But in any event, so that was like my first goal. But it was kind of discouraging to a degree, and I think this is important to talk about because you have this idea of what you're gonna look like in the mirror when you lose a certain amount of weight. And when I got down to 199, and then I saw that I still had like, the man boobs, I still had like loose skin, I still had a gut, I still had stretch marks, and there were all these like aesthetic things that wasn't pleasing to me. It almost didn't feel like the work was worth it, even though it was. And that's a lot mentally to deal with.
Mm.
Um, so that was a place where it kind of fell short. So then when I got to 199, and I've heard multiple people say this, like, if you think that you need to lose 20 pounds to look a certain way, you probably need to lose like 35 pounds. And that's what it ended up being because I didn't actually start to see the changes like in the mirror, like really see it until I probably got to like 180. And then when I got to like 180, the difference between 180 to like 172 was dramatic, visibly.
Mm.
So
Okay.
it's like, there comes a point when like there's this peak. It's like once you hit this point, it's like every single pound you lose, you notice an exponential change. So
Okay.
but still I still have loose skin. I still have like, some loose skin in my chest, loose skin in my gut. And so that's kind of where it fell short of what my hopes were, but I feel great. So I feel much better than I ever thought I was going to feel. And I probably look better than I expected to. So
Yeah. 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 For sure. Well, I shouldn't say for sure because I actually when I met you, I think you were around that 220, maybe, maybe a little bit more. And you look great. I mean, you look great to me. You were always just very, very strong to me. I didn't really look at, of course I couldn't see it. I mean, of course I'm not, I'm not checking for it, but either, but um as a coach, I was just kind of coaching everybody how to move well. So I wasn't looking at that. So I appreciate you saying that, like that your your expectations didn't meet, but it kind of exceeded in a way. And I think that's interesting with life, right? Like how we we have something in our minds, and um, and we have an outcome in mind, and then when we don't meet that outcome, or if it doesn't, uh, yeah, meet with our expectations, then it can discourage a lot of people. So, like, what kinds of things did you do to help you, not be discouraged and just to keep going? Like, what kinds of things helped you?
wow, that's a great question. Um, I think I think everybody has gifts and abilities. I think that one of my there's a lot of things I'm not good at. But I think one of the things in life that I'm just generally good at is like showing up every day, no matter what. And there are a lot of like, that's something that people wouldn't really think. That's something that nobody would really think is a skill. So like I had like I had perfect attendance from first to 12th grade, right? Like I was one of those kids. And
Me too.
right, of course you were. That's the tourist, the Haitian, all that coming together. But and so I think that was kind of what it is, because there comes a point when it's like, okay, if I give up, like, how is that going to help me get to my goal? How is giving up going to help me? It's not. How has giving up ever helped anybody? So it's like when you look in the mirror, like sometimes I would talk to myself, not sometimes, all the time, and I still do it today. And I'm like, just show up every day. Trust the process. Just do it. Just trust the process. Trust the process. So that's one. And then I started doing a lot of research. So I started watching a lot of YouTube videos, but that's another dangerous thing too, because when you start looking at a lot of YouTube videos, one YouTube video will tell you why breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And then another YouTube video will tell you why you should intermittent fast. And that's the most important thing. And these are, if you don't know what those two things are, they're complete opposites. Right? But I started doing a lot of research, and I just started to look at what makes the most sense to me. And then once I realized that losing weight is science, losing weight is mathematical, losing weight is learning your body, and it takes time, that's what encouraged me, because then I felt like I had this control over the weight loss process. But it took 3, 4, 5 months of learning and tweaking, not just throwing the whole plan out the window, just tweaking something minor, maybe 10 minutes more of cardio, maybe that, right? So we don't really learn to tweak in our society today. And I think that's why people get discouraged, because it's like, I'm going to go all in on keto. It didn't work after a week. I'm going to go all out. So that's kind of like a hodgepodge of things in my mind regarding your question.
Very good. Very good point. That's a very good point. And I think so. We've had a discussion before about help and how we help and where the intention comes from when we say we want to help people. And I think in the industry, that's, you can ask anyone in the fitness industry, they'll tell you that, oh, because I want to help people. And so we put out a lot of things. We put out a lot of what we believe, we put out a lot of research, we put out a lot of science. This is what this, this is definitely going to be the thing that, will make everyone lose weight or whatever, body composition, aesthetic goals, whatever your goals are. I got you. I have the solution for you. And we do that a lot in the industry, and it's just an overwhelming. I can only imagine, like, and not that I can only imagine. I could actually know from experience how overwhelming the information can be. And so, like when I was talking about help, like how how do you help without your ego being involved in it, or you wanting to impose some sort of subscription on people or whatever. And what you said, makes that point where you said that people don't take the time to really learn their body. They don't take the time to tweak or take the time to make an edit. Like, maybe this didn't work, maybe all of it didn't work, maybe this piece of it worked, and let me try to implement that, or let me use that. But I think also too, we in the industry need to learn how to, to listen more, like listen to each individual person, and not just say like, no, this is the way. Macros is the way, and if you can't get macros, then I can't help you. Macros is the way to lose fat, and but instead of just listening to people, like, without wanting to respond, just listen with the intent to, like, receive information. So you're telling me, if you're telling me that, let's say you and I were chatting as a client and a coach, and you're saying that, well, intermittent fasting didn't work for me. In what way it didn't? And then I would be like more curious, like, what didn't work? What exactly didn't work? But there are some people who are like, well, if let's throw it out, let's try keto, like you said, or let's try paleo, let's try Whole30. And so what you said, that really resonates with me. Like, just having people take the time to be a scientist, an experiment, and it's not all, it's not all good information. Some of it is not, it's not meant to really help people. More, a lot of it is meant to just kind of, some of these people are just trying to flex. And but actually there are some people who are trying to help. And so you have to get into it. And I really appreciate you saying that you really got into it. And I really want, I would love for people to, I would encourage, and it's inspiring me to do the same with my own health and wellness too, like to really just continue being more of a scientist. So yeah, so I am, that being said, I'm going to ask a question without the intent to respond. I want to take my own advice here. I'm going to ask, what method did you use that worked for you? What
Yeah.
method, what did you use that was like the game changer for you last year, would you say?
Yeah. So I will give you that answer in a second, but I did want to add a comment to what you said before, because I think everything works, but science doesn't change, right? So I think keto works, but we need to understand why keto works. So some people will, and I didn't do keto, like I didn't do it. No, no, no. But I think it works. I think intermittent fasting works, but I also think eating 5 meals a day works. I think all of it works. If you understand the foundation of why they work. I think that the hard part that happens is sometimes people who are like really, really academic with it, they get to the point when you forget, like, the people you're talking to aren't academic. They're normal people, right? They're like regular people. So what ends up, whenever I see these videos, even now that I have a deep understanding of it, it's like you do this, and then magic, right? It's like
Yeah,
at some point it's like magic, because that's what these scientific terms sound like to me, right? And then even now it's like your body hits this state of ketosis, and I'm joking, not because I don't think it works, but because for me, I'm like, I don't understand what that means. I'm not going to take the time to understand what it means, but you can tell people like, hey, this is what it takes. But I think that everything works, but I think that every diet or every eating plan, there is a way to explain it plainly. So, for example, at least in my opinion, and somebody else could tell me I'm completely wrong because I'm not a master of this, so I will say that up front. But like, I think the reason that somebody that does intermittent fasting, which I don't, the reason that it works is because it's this method of calorie restriction, essentially. Because if what happens is, let's say that you're supposed to eat, and that's basically what I did, was like really understanding calories in versus calories out. But like, let's say that I skip breakfast. So let's say that normally I would have, I don't know, let's just say that you eat a yogurt in the morning, and that yogurt is 100 calories. And then you eat an egg omelet, regular egg omelet, right? In the morning, not egg whites with, I don't know, what do people put in their omelets? Let's say it was a healthy, let's say you get some feta cheese and some spinach or something like that with like 3 eggs. So that's like 210 plus, I don't know. And so let's say that it's probably about like 330 calories or something like that, right? You have that, and then you have your yogurt, and then that's already puts you at, like, let's say 430 calories between the yogurt and the egg white omelet, 430 calories, and then you have a banana or something like that, right? And then that's like 100 calories for a medium sized banana. So then that puts you at what, like 510. I'm doing this off the top of my head, so the numbers may be off, but the philosophy is there. So then it's like, let's say that's 510, and let's say that you have a cup of coffee with some creamer or something like that, or whatever as well. The coffee is basically 0 calorie, but then if you put like regular sugar in there, I don't use regular sugar, so I don't know how many grams or calories it is, but let's just say it's like, I don't know, 30, plus the sweetener or whatever. So let's just say like it's 100 calories for like the cup of coffee that you have. So now you're at like 610 calories, right? And then that's literally before you 10 o'clock. Probably, right? So if you think about it, that's kind of realistic. It's like 10, 11 o'clock before you even like touched your lunch.
Mm-hmm.
So now with intermittent fasting, what ends up happening is you don't have any of that because you're starting to eat at 12 o'clock. So now you're saying, hey, at 12 o'clock, you're starting from 0 instead of starting from like negative 610. So now that meal that you can have, like, let's say that you have the same lunch, but you can have a little bit more like you can take 300 extra calories into that lunch and you can have a bigger meal. And then now that bigger meal is more satiating, and that meal might like last you through, like you're not going to want to eat because you had a bigger meal and you have those extra calories. So even if your lunch was like 300 calories more, you're still plus positive 300 calories because you skipped all of the extra stuff that I mentioned earlier. And then you allocate the extra thing to dinner as well. So then you stop eating, let's say at like 8 or whatever the fasting window is. So now when you actually think about it, like you've basically done this like calorie restriction based on the timing that you ate. So that's, to me, from a weight loss perspective, that's why an intermittent fasting would like work. It's not, and I could be completely wrong, but in my mind, this is how it works. Because I've done it on a couple of days, like Thanksgiving, stuff like that. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna intermittent fast today because I'm about to go in on dinner. But I think that's why it works. And to me, that's mathematical. That's not like, I think anybody that hears that could be like, actually, that does make a lot of sense, right? But so that's like something I felt I had to explain when we talk about like making it plain for people. And it's not just like, well, intermittent fasting, there's this like scientific like magic that happens where your body does this weird thing, because it's like at the end of the day, it's the law of thermodynamics, right? Energy is neither created nor destroyed. So that's one, and that's a very important point. I know I'm long-winded dude, but I'm a sucker for detail. Like I need detail. So that's one. But the way I lost it, and the thing for me was basically what I just told you now, is like, you can see off the top of my head, I can just kind of like calculate what like some of the numbers are. And that's just what I learned. I learned what is in all of my food. Like, so now I basically can mix and match like through the course of the day. So I know, first I looked up my TDEE, which is your total daily energy expenditure, which is basically like how many calories could you consume every day without gaining or losing weight. So a lot of people don't even know this number, right? They start just, everything in life we prepare for. If we're gonna move somewhere, right? Like we want to buy a house, we spend a bunch of time doing research on the neighborhood, on all this stuff. But when we want to start losing weight, it's like, okay, today's Friday, boop, Monday, I'm gonna do it. So you didn't even prepare. So preparing and knowing something like your TDEE, how many calories can I consume every day without gaining or losing weight? There are online calculators that can help you do this. However, those online calculators are just a target, right? They're not exact because everybody's body is different. Over time, you'll learn your exact TDE. So understanding that was something. And then I basically just said, one pound of fat is 3,500 calories. So if you are in a 500 calorie deficit, at least my understanding of it is like, if I'm in a 500 calorie deficit every day, that means 1 pound of fat per week, because 500 times 7 is 3,500. So basically, I would just calculate the TDEE minus 500 calories, and I would make sure that my calories are at that every single day. But then it's also not just looking at it as, it's fixing your thought about what calories look like. Because just because something is small doesn't mean it's small in calories, because there's a difference between calorie dense foods and high volume foods, right? So what do I mean by that? For example, like when you eat calorie dense foods, it's very easy to overeat in terms of calories. So like peanut butter, 2 tablespoons of peanut butter is about 200 calories. So that's, if you think about 200 calories, that's a lot for 2 tablespoons of peanut butter. And I would have a lot more. You compare that to like an egg white omelet, where for 200 calories, I can literally have an egg white omelet that has like 6 servings of egg whites and some fat-free mozzarella cheese and like 2 pieces of turkey bacon for like 200 calories. So now you start looking at which one is more filling, which one has more protein, which one is more satiating. And more likely than not, if I have that big omelet with those calories instead, I'm less likely to snack in the day. And then it kind of has this like ripple effect of how my entire day sets up for the eating. So that's really about the calories in portion that really changed the game for me. Because like, at JCF, the calories out, like the working out, that was easy for me. I just love working out. But the calories in portion was what I really, really struggled with. And now that I understood it, I was able to manipulate that. But that doesn't mean you have to starve yourself. It means that you have to pay attention to what you're eating. So sometimes if I would get to like the end of the day and I'm like really hungry for some reason, I would like sit and I would think, I'm like, why am I hungry? I wouldn't just, I was like, why am I hungry? So I would like think back on the day. I'm like, where did I mess up my calories? Like, did I eat something? And then it's like, oh yeah, I forgot. Like I had that like random protein bar because I was running to and from somewhere. And then that took up like 250 calories that I would have probably allocated somewhere else that would have been more valuable. So that's pretty much what I spent my entire year last year learning. And I know that might seem like overwhelming for some people, but understand something. I would have been able to tell you zero, none of that last year at this time.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a lot. Like I said, I'm listening, not to respond. I'm because I'm curious what people learned and what they learned about food, about you mentioned about energy. You learned, yeah, and how food is food has energy, and how you have to work on expending it. And so I'm just curious. I'm just listening, and I don't want to. I'm not judging. I'm not going to add anything to it. I'm not going to add my opinion to it. I think if anybody's watching this on YouTube, if you would like to comment on it, I would say, just if you're going to comment on anything, just I would avoid thinking about like what you would do. Like if you would do something, like do that, like just do that, and come up with your own conclusion. But I'm not going to, because listen, if it works for you, what can I say, right?
And the thing I want to add to that too is like, because I know that there's a lot of difference between like, for me, I break fitness down into three areas. I break it down into body aesthetic, nutrition, and then fat loss. And then what happens is like a lot of time people mix these three things together, because you can be very skinny, or you can be light but be extremely non-nutritious. So you can lose the to me, the area where nutrition and then the calories comes in is typically like, if you depending like if you're eating things that are more nutritious, at least what I found is like, if I'm eating something that's more nutritious, it's usually going to be a little bit more satiating. But when you start eating things that are not nutritious, like in theory, based on my philosophy, I could eat Twinkies all day as long as I'm under a certain calorie point. The problem is, Twinkies would not fill me up at all, because my body wouldn't, it takes nothing for my body to process them. My body would like literally, it would do nothing to satiate me. So I would literally I would need to eat 100 Twinkies to be full. But then if I ate enough Twinkies to be full, then I would be way over my calories. So I think that there is this intimate connection between nutrition and calories, and then body aesthetic. But I think it's so important that we take the time to understand like what place each of those things has in our overall health and wellness.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we have a different categories, but like I said, listen. uh it really is like that. It is really, it's not, nothing is exact. And so we, what can I say? Like the only thing I mean, I will say, like, if anyone is considering, follow, because Darnell, you have a YouTube channel, and you have, where um you're going to be chronicling your, where you are right now and going forward, and you're also giving tips, right? You're giving what sort of thing, those sorts of things. If you are going to be following him, again, you take the information, as you would with like any other piece of information, and enter it with a lot of curiosity, no judgment, and if you want to try it out to see if it works for you, and but you have to be, like we were saying in the beginning, you have to be a scientist and see if it will, be what will work for you. And it's, nothing is going to be a magic bullet. There's no magic bullet. There's not a single one out there. And yeah, so are you, yeah, so your channel, talk about your YouTube channel. What is that going to have?
Yeah, so the first few videos that I posted were more like mindset driven, more
Mhm.
story based, as opposed to like vlog, typical. So the first video I posted was called Imposter. So it was more of like a story type of deal, just talking about like how even though like how when you get to a certain point, like a lot of times you just feel like a fraud. And that's kind of like how loose skin made me feel in a way, even though I know my loose skin is not as severe as a lot of people's, but like when you lose all this weight and then you look in the mirror and you see stretch marks, you see loose skin, and you see all these things, and then you have this idea in your mind. It's like it does make you feel like a fraud to yourself, if not to everybody else. So,
Mm.
um, so
Well, let
there's
me
that.
let me let me stop you there. Like, what does that mean? Like, feel like a fraud. What does that mean?
Yeah, it's kind of like when you lose all these things, it's like you're very self-conscious. So you almost like want to make it seem like, yeah, I'm confident. Yeah, like, yeah, I'm happy. Yeah, I'm like, whatever. Yeah, like I had this big success. And then it's like when you go home at nighttime and then it's like just you and yourself, if you're being honest, it's like, man, everybody thinks that I'm satisfied or whatever it is, but I'm not, right? Like when I look in the mirror, I'm still not like, yeah, people might see I'm the guy that lost 150 pounds or whatever. Like my arms look pretty good, but then it's like when I take off my shirt, it's like, yeah, like I don't feel that way. So that's something that mentally, I think a lot of people go through, imposter syndrome and mental health and overall. And it's not just in weight loss. I think it's in everything. It could be in a career, it could be in a
Yeah,
relationship,
yeah, for sure.
right? A friendship.
For sure.
So,
But
so that's
your
what I mean.
your physical is a big piece of who who people attach their identity to. So to feel like a fraud, is that what how you would say that you're sort of feeling like today, or what's is anything changed from that?
I mean, it's definitely changed. It's like through the process, I've battled that thought. So I'm a big proponent of like not running away from those feelings and not running away from those thoughts or not acting like those thoughts don't exist. Because if you act like they don't exist, then you'll never be able to battle your demons, right? If you don't accept the fact that you have a fight to fight,
Mm.
then you can't battle what you need. You can't overcome what you need to. So that's something I've battled for a while, and I've been battling, and I'm at peace with it now. And I think that some YouTubers that have struggled with loose skin, being open about that have helped me, and that's why I felt it was important to be open about it. Because and it's not it may be somebody that was obese, like myself, for most of their life. Maybe it's somebody that was pregnant, right, and they had a child, and then their body hasn't gone back to the way that they expected it to, and there's some self-esteem issues or whatever.
Yeah.
There's self-efficacy. So there can be a lot of different things. So, but I think it's important to just kind of have like a daily affirmation with yourself, and that's what I've done regularly, and I still do today. When I have these thoughts come up, I wrestle with them and I overcome those.
Yeah. And so what at this point, like what would you say like the people ask you the most? What's the question that people ask you the most now that you're putting yourself out there more? What's the most frequently asked question?
You know what, a lot of people have asked me about my diet, right? Like a lot, it's surprisingly so, like a lot people aren't coming up to me asking me like, oh, how did you work out? I think that it's common knowledge now, like that you can't outwork a bad diet. So a lot of people ask me about like, hey, what have you been eating? Because I think it's so confusing. It's so confusing, the
We
amount of
yeah,
information.
we don't help with that, and as professionals, we do not help with making it clear. And but yeah, you saying yeah, continue.
Yeah, that's the main thing, right? That is it. Like, and once again, I go back to, and whenever people ask me, I'm like, okay, well, what do you want? Like, what can you sustain? Like, what you have to be honest with yourself, right? Like, I think at least in my opinion, I think everything is permissible as long as it's within a plan.
Hmm.
So if you plan it, you can plan accordingly. So it's like, for example, on my birthday, I eat cannoli cake every year. That's my thing. But when I'm gonna have it, I'm like, okay, I plan around like, okay, what does my week look like, or what does my day look like, so I can earn that thing, right? So there's like a lot of that, but the eating is a really big thing. Nobody's really asked me at all about the workouts. I'm going to be posting some videos about workouts. About a lot of my material, I think, is going to be focused on people trying to start the journey, because I think the start is so important. So how do you prepare to lose weight, like mentally, physically, financially? How do you prepare? and then how do you
Cool.
start? And that's going to be the biggest thing that I'm going to be talking about. And that's a lot of what I tell
How
people.
do you
So
prepare financially? Give me a tidbit there. That's a very interesting point.
so one of the things, like for example, is like when it comes to investments. So one of the big things that helped me was just the home gym. And there are different levels of a home gym that you can build that can be conducive to weight loss. So for me, my home gym is getting pretty robust, but you don't have to have a robust home gym. I'm a firm believer that if you just have like an exercise bike and bands and a yoga mat, you can pretty much do everything that you need to do from a weight loss perspective if that's all you have. And then so that's like a financial investment that you have to make and mentally be prepared to make. And then if you want to level up to get certain types of workouts in as you learn more, then there's like a certain financial investment that you have to make in terms of like what do you want for that space. There are a lot of different programs that you can subscribe to. Like me, I'm really Beachbody was my thing because it has such variety of like 12-week programs, 4-week programs, where all you have to do is press play, and it's like having a coach in your room all the time. So
Mm-hmm.
that was something that I did. But there are other programs like Peloton has a lot of programs, things like that. So you might want to invest in that, or you might want to invest in an actual coach like yourself, right? Where it's like, hey, this person can like cater things to you specifically. So that could be like another financial thing. So you have to like be prepared mentally and say, okay, how much can I afford? Just that's on the workout front. And then there's also the piece of like, okay, well, from a shopping perspective, like how much do I want to spend per week? But then that goes to a certain amount of planning, like, okay, and understanding yourself, like how much do I like to eat? Like when do I like to eat? Right. So like me, I know that I go through about like 4 half cartons of cashew milk a week. I do. That's just how it, and I go through like 2 things of like non-fat Greek yogurt a week. That's just because those are bases of things that I make. So those are like some of the financial investments in terms of preparing financially for it. But you have to understand, but before you even prepare financially, you have to know yourself and know like what is it going to take for me to be consistent. And the only person that can answer that is you. So a lot of people don't answer that question. They just say, yeah, I'm going to hire a personal trainer and I'm going to do it. But it's like, okay, you can hire a personal trainer, but if you're not going to commit to that personal trainer for a certain amount of time, and if you're not going to give that personal trainer a month or 2 months to learn you, help you tweak things, then mentally that's not. So mentally you have to prepare yourself first, and then once you know what it's going to take for you to sustain, then you can prepare your finances to know what you have to invest, whether it's in equipment, whether it's in resources, or whether it's in
Yep.
food, etc. So that's what I mean.
Oh, that's great. I love that. That's really, really great tidbit because I think a lot of people don't think about that. And it doesn't mean it can apply to all different kinds of areas in your life. Um, Preparing. Have you prepared for this leap, especially if you are going to be embarking on a journey of transformation? Like it does take that. It does take you at the start. What do I have? Which, by the way, you don't need anything. You can look in here. You don't need anything. You need most prison cells are like 6 by 8.
You can, it's the one thing you do need, sorry no, but the one thing you do need is this, right? You need
You
this.
don't need, yeah, you don't need any equipment to start. However, if you are going to be serious, like you said, like yes, maybe eventually you'll want to up the ante with a bike or bands and things like that. But to start, you don't need a thing. Um, you may need a mat.
I
But
actually do think you need that. I think a mat is critical because
a mat is critical.
you'll be
Definitely
slipping and sliding. That's
it's a
tough.
lot. Yeah, you need 6 by 8 and a mat. That's it. Um, and yeah, so what would you say at this point? What was your biggest win? Would you say in this journey?
Wow,
Especially
that's
last year. Last year we had the whole pandemic, the whole pandemonium, whatever the panini. What was your biggest win? Would you say in this?
that's an awesome question. You ask amazing questions.
Thank.
For I've never thought about my biggest win. I think my biggest win was hitting 199 pounds. because there are mental blocks that we have. We don't know a lot of times we don't take time to identify our mental blocks. So that I always go back to like preparing, like mentally, like understanding yourself, right? Like if you don't know the enemy that you're fighting, like you're gonna lose. That's it. So like mentally, I think when I hit 199 and the scale said that thing, even though the scale is not everything. The scale is not everything. For me, it's just a data point.
Yeah.
But and it can tell you if you slip it, right? But I'm not one of those people like, oh, you need to lose 5 pounds. Like I don't obsess over that. But when I hit 199, that was like the moment when it was like, wow, like I control this. It was in fact throughout the whole journey, that was probably the only like really weight loss driven thing that I posted was when I hit 199, and it's the pictures on my Instagram. It was like 199.6. And then once I hit that, it was like, okay, well, the sky's the limit, right? So that was probably my biggest win.
Which is scary too, right? Like at that point, we were like, right?
Yeah, it's uncharted territory. Yeah. And I'm in uncharted territory now too. Right now is the scariest time. So if you want to talk about like right now is really the scariest time for me, and I'm just trusting the process because now when I hit 165, that wasn't sustainable for me. I did that. The reason I went that low is because I was like, it would be really cool to be in the normal BMI range. Not that BMI matters per se, but just because I wanted to challenge myself to be like at some point in life, I'm in that BMI that the doctor is saying that I'm supposed to be, even though it's arbitrary. But it was supposed to be 163, and that would have been impossible. Like I would have had to kill myself to get to 163. It was not going to happen for me at all. So the pictures that I have on my feed now, even though I look heavier, I was only 165 in those. But I always knew that I wanted to get to a point where I was going to get to a muscle building state, and so I could try to see the process of what does filling out some of the loose skin look like. So that's what I'm doing right now. It is scary. And I think that a lot of people, and maybe you were telling me this or somebody else, but a lot of people struggle with this when you've gone on this big weight loss journey. And then it's like, how do I get back to normal?
Gaining is actually really hard. It's really hard to do.
But it's scary. It's scary because if you've been losing a bunch of weight and you've been on this weight loss tip and then you've lost whatever you want, but that's not sustainable forever. Like you can't be in a calorie deficit forever. It's just not sustainable. So then when you get to the point when you have to start saying, I'm going to eat normal again, like in terms of calories, I'm not going to try to lose weight. Mentally, that's another demon you have to fight because now it's like you need to have a healthy respect for your body and your body's needs, and you need to listen to your body. And moving to that so right now I'm in the process where it's like I need to eat more calories so I can like kind of put on some muscle, and that's scary because to put it plainly, I'm trying to learn to be plain about my fears. It's like I'm afraid of being like fat again, straight up. Like that's it's hard to say that, but like I'm afraid of overeating and then gaining back and then getting all the work that I put in, losing that. But mentally I have to fight that right now. And it's like, Darnell, trust the process, right? And do that. So that's kind of something. And even when I was like losing a lot of weight, there came a point when I had no energy and I was like, Darnell, go and add some calories in. Your body is telling you need more. So that's the scariest part too. Even though you didn't ask that question, I thought it was very important to kind of say that.
Yeah. So, I mean, you would have to like really surround yourself with people who really support you. Like what were some of the things that people were saying as you were, what were people around you that see you more often? Were they saying things? And
I think the cool thing is the only person that saw me was my wife because we're in COVID. So nobody,
that's
like I wasn't at work.
Like a perfect time to
yeah, so no, like maybe my mom saw me a couple of times, but other than that, nobody really saw me. And you know, my wife, she sees me every day. So since she sees me every day, she's not going to notice the changes that much. And then she didn't really necessarily notice it. And then she's like, she was gonna like order some shirts. She's like, hey, do you want a shirt? And then she's like, oh, what size? And I'm like, I don't know. I think maybe a small. She's like, small? What? So then,
Unheard
right.
of.
So this is like a
Wow,
medium
no.
actually. So, right. So it's kind of like that. Or like when I'm like coming in and it's like all of a sudden, like I have like vascularity or I have like a six pack. And then she's like, where did that come from? So that was like occasional, but there are these, but that kind of happened. You know how I said like that difference between 180 to 172. That's kind of when she started to really notice the big change. And
Yeah.
then when I did like the shoot for the imposter video and the collecting pennies video, the collecting pennies video was just talking about like showing up every day. Um, when I actually that was the first time that I was around people and I took off my shirt. And then like some friends that I knew since I was in high school, that's when they were like, whoa, like where did this come from? So nobody really saw the process, but people kind of saw the results.
And they've been, you would say people have been supportive, you've had a supportive group around you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
how important do you feel like that was, going forward and while you were in it and while you're still going through it?
Yeah, I think for different people it could, for me it wasn't overly important. Just because like I'm the type of person that there's something about pursuing goals in private, like waking up at 5 a.m. or 5:30 just like by myself and just like I don't necessarily need a lot of external affirmation. I'm a pretty self-motivated person.
Yeah.
I can hold myself accountable pretty well
Mhm.
when I want something. So I think that those are some things that I'm good at. But so for me, it wasn't the most important thing for me when it comes to people is not letting negative people in. So it's not necessarily that I need positive affirmation or positive energy around me because I always bring positivity wherever I am. I try
This
to,
is true. This
but
is
it
true.
but it's important for me to keep negative energy out. So I think that people need to think about both of those things. It's like, hey, do you need positive people around you? Do you need affirmation? Do you need that? And if you do, how do you get that? Is it being part of a support group? Is it whatever it may be? Is it part of being part of an accountability group or whatever that is? So that's one. But then there's this other side of like, are you the type of person like me that you need to keep negative energy out? And if
Mm,
so, how do you guard it? So just like there's two types of energy that you need to think about in your life, and you need to be active. I keep going back to this preparation and knowing yourself.
preparation, I was gonna say, I was like, you have to put that in the prep. In the
Yeah, you
all of
have
that has
to.
to be in the prep box.
Yeah, so that's one. And then there's also like two types of willpower. There's the willpower to do something, and then there's the willpower to not do something.
Mhm.
For my entire life, I had the willpower to do something, right? So it was very easy for me to get up and wake up at 5 a.m. to go to JCF. That was something that was easy for me. But what wasn't easy for me was to refrain the willpower to not eat that cookie. And not saying that I'll eat cookies if I want to. I'll just plan it, but whatever. But so for me, nothing is off the table. It's all about, but anyway, I'm not against that. But so it does the same way that there's two types of energy that I had to protect myself from. There's also two different types of willpowers, and you have to understand like, is there one area where I'm weak in terms of these two different types of willpowers? And then you have to protect yourself and guard and prepare for
Prepare.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so at this point, like, what are you looking forward to?
So my goals this year are so right now I'm in this muscle building phase. Last week I was in North Carolina with my wife and my mother-in-law and my sister-in-law, my grandmother-in-law. So I didn't fall off the wagon. I still worked out 4 days a week. My calories were higher than I targeted, even though I were even higher than my higher calories. So what I'm looking forward to now is between now and probably September. I'm going to be focusing on trying to slowly build muscle and learn through the process. So my goals aren't necessarily weight goals, although I need to make sure that I'm not falling off the wagon. Once again, I weigh myself as a data point, not to obsess over the weight.
Sure.
Um, so I'm looking to gain strength. So I'm focusing on just like, what does my performance feel like? Because I think, and you could please tell me because I don't know, I'm learning all this stuff, is I think it's really hard to know if you're putting on muscle or fat. right? Because a lot of times people will go into this bulk state and then they'll just be like, I need to bulk, so they're eating a bunch of calories and then they gain a bunch of strength and it's like, yeah. Oh, and then they think they gain 20 pounds of muscle in a month and it's like, you probably didn't gain 20 pounds of muscle in a month naturally, right? So you probably put on some fat too. So what I'm trying to do is like, in my mind, I'm thinking if I just focus on strength, if I focus on performance, if I know that my numbers in terms of like, hey, how much am I benching? How much am I squatting? How are my lunges? Am I feeling more explosive? If that's improving, then I'm assuming that means that I'm putting on some kind of muscle as opposed to adding just fat on. So that's like what I'm targeting is I have strength goals from now until September, October, which I assume will also come with a certain amount of weight gain, which I'm hoping is around 3 or 4, maybe 5 pounds to be maybe assuming that if all this stuff goes the way I want to from a strength perspective, that I'll end up around the 183 to 185 range. And then my goal is to from like September, from like probably October to the beginning right before Thanksgiving is I want to cut again just to see what I look like, to see if I was able to fill out some of the loose skin. I'll probably tape some more videos, do a couple of photo shoots, something like that, and then just give myself a runway for the holidays. So because I know I'm going to go in. So that's kind of what I'm preparing for.
He is already prepared, you guys, for Christmas, holidays, 2021.
Yeah.
Okay,
But
Darnell is already prepared.
but yeah, no, I would love to know your thoughts on that because in terms of my philosophy, in terms of like muscle gain versus fat gain, like I'm all ears. I'm a sponge. Please tell me your thoughts on it.
Yes, muscle gain, fat gain. Okay, so there is another conversation that we need to have, and we could have that actually offline. Yeah, so in terms of gaining muscle, and we could definitely talk about that. We'll talk. We're going to focus on the muscle gain. We will not be focusing on the we will not be focusing on that. But not that. Yeah. So we will talk about that offline whenever. I'm always happy to chat because all of that stuff teaches me as well. I get to learn, I get to do research and things like that. So feel free to continue to reach out to me. But yes, but we will be working on muscle gain. And in terms of strength and gaining strength, yes, that is going to. I could we could have like another hour conversation about this, but yes, you can.
We'll table that because I know it's a big. I know we're running short, and we could table that for another time because I know it's like.
I just don't want it to be too extended. I really want to focus on. I already got really great tidbits from some of the things that you said, and I want to start sharing that over the week because like I said, yes, I am a certified nutrition coach and certain personal trainer. Yes, we have knowledge, but it's you guys teach us. You guys have shaped, like I said, when we were at JCF together. You guys shaped the program. It was y'all. Like we know this stuff, yeah, but you guys shaped it by you giving us feedback. So it has to be that kind of give and take. And that's what I want people to, especially I would hope people take away from this is that, there are a lot of things that, yes, there are standards, there's research, there's pathologies. At the same time, those standards, those research, those are on a very small population of people. So, and usually it's white male. I'll just say that it's usually white male. And so it doesn't take a lot of other people and other cultures into consideration. So you're teaching me, right? So, and that's what we need to be open to. I need to be open to that. So, thank you, Darnell. This was amazing. We already had a really great conversation like a couple weeks ago, and I wanted to have you on because I was like, you can't just be giving me all this good stuff and it's not going out into the world.
Oh, no, no, listen, thank you so much. And you like you guys, JCF was just such an amazing experience. And as I think it's so critical to pay attention in life. A lot of times we don't take time to pay attention. Like one of my favorite movies is Jet Li's Fearless, and one of the parts was he was in the field and he was planting, and he was so competitive that everybody else was like taking time and they were planting these plants all in a row, giving them the exact amount of distance that each of them needed. But he was looking around and all he was thinking about was like, hey, I need to plant these plants faster than everybody else. So he finishes doing that, he leaves, and then he comes back and then he sees this woman and she's going down and redoing his work. Why? Because all of his plants were clumped together and everybody else's plants had this space to grow. And it's funny because one part when they were all planting, he was planting and he was racing. And then they all just stopped and then they just looked up in the air and then they caught a breeze. And they just stopped working to catch this breeze. And then he just said, forget it, I'm just going to keep planting. And then it wasn't until later on in the movie that he realized like it's not about how fast you plant, it's about the quality of the plant, giving the plant the space to grow, and then also taking the time to appreciate the breeze. And I think in life we don't take time to appreciate the breeze. And sometimes part of appreciating the breeze is like when you stop to take that breath and appreciate the breeze, you start to learn things and you start to observe things. And I think that that's the big challenge when it comes to like weight loss is don't focus on losing the weight fast. Don't focus, it's not a race, right? It's about the process. It's about taking the time to appreciate what you've learned. It's about time to reflect on your successes. It's time to reflect on your challenges, what's pushed you, what stretched you, what you've enjoyed, what you haven't enjoyed, and then build something that's going to be sustainable. So that's an analogy that I would use is like the Jet Li's Fearless thing I used all the time, and it's like take that time. And I think JCF really helped me do that because before that I never understood working out outside of like the traditional sports like gym weightlifter, and that was it, right? And then life hands you something and then you learn. And fortunately, I took the time to take all the learnings that I have from JCF and I was able to apply it to what I'm doing now. So I really appreciate that period in my life.
Yeah, we appreciate you too. It was a great time. And thank you again for sharing that and sharing that last piece of wisdom. This is exactly why I wanted I wanted to have you and I wanted to share you with people because and really have people listen because you may not you again, it's like with everything, take what works for you, you can throw away what doesn't work for you, but everything is, it's like with everything, like you don't have to, you know it's not all or nothing. There's no zero, why we always looking at things like zero sum. Anyway, so I'm sure we'll chat offline. Yes, I'm happy to talk to you about strength training and stuff. So we'll do that afterwards. And enjoy the rest of your day. Please say hello to Alyssa for me. And yeah, give her my regards. And if anybody has any questions for Darnell, you can find him on he has a YouTube channel. I'm going to put the link in the description box. I'm going to put the link to his channel and you can follow along. You can follow along in his journey. You can, reach out to him directly there. So, but thank you so much for this. This was amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. All right. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Take care.